the most recent being quitting my well-paid career, selling everything and moving across the world from Canada to Greece to live a now very, very beautiful aligned life.
Welcome to Holistic Circle Podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy and living in Greece. Welcome, Angell Kelly.
Thank you for having me, Philip. I'm looking forward to the conversation and getting to know one another.
My viewers know my obsession with Greece, so they understand if I have a guest from Greece, it's always horrible because all I want to talk about is Greece and nothing else.
I get it. I get the hype. And, there are a lot of Austrians here on the island that I live. One of our close friends is Austrian. So I feel like there must be some sort of connection.
Absolutely. It's warm, it's nice, it's a good living. So that's the connection.
Right, yeah.
We're living on high mountains in the snow. So,
I get it.
All right.
Canada, yeah.
But I think, unfortunately, I cannot have one more podcast only talking about Greece. So I think we have to talk about something else as well. Otherwise, people are going to lose it. I just had a couple of episodes with a philosopher, professor, and of course, the Greek agora, and then the whole thing went completely out of control. So let's try to avoid it. But
right.
I will be asking you what you're doing there and why you made the big move from Canada to Greece. But let's first do this professional. Give us a little bit of a background story, who you are, what you're from, so people get to know you.
Yeah, sure. So I am a spiritual guide and intuitive, and I'm a host of a podcast myself called Spirit Club. And gosh, my story. So my spiritual awakening came on the back of years and years of doing inner work. So inner work that looked like meditation, reflection, journaling, working with coaches, a lot of subconscious reprogramming. And I was doing all this work. And as I was doing this inner work, I was seeing direct influence on my external. Like the world around me was changing the more I worked on what was going on inside. It was incredible. And so that is now like sort of the truth that I stand on, that your external world is only ever a reflection of your internal world. So if you want change, that's where you go. And for me, Philip, after years of doing that work, at the time, I started to study A Course in Miracles. I don't know if you know it, but it's a channeled text. It's a channeled text of Jesus. And it called to me and I started working with it and something just opened up. And I think it was because of years of doing all this unblocking work, I finally had connected deep enough that I could allow God in. And I just opened up, connected to God. And on the other side of that, so many beautiful things happened. My intuitive gifts came online, and those are now a part of the work that I do today with clients, doing readings and so on. And most importantly, the connection, the relationship with God opening up has allowed me to follow where God wants me to go, which is a combination of listening to God and my intuition. And that has led me to do some pretty big moves in my life, the most recent being quitting my well-paid career, selling everything and moving across the world from Canada to Greece to live a now very, very beautiful aligned life. So that's me in a nutshell.
Must make this comment. I cannot resist. It must be the voice of God if it tells you to go to Greece.
Right? Yeah.
I'm sorry. I must make the joke. I'm not making fun of God, but it's just my endless love for Greece that brings me to say things like this. Wow. So that's a big move. You made a big move, and I thought you understand you coming with your partner or a family or.
Yes, I came with my partner. Mm-hmm.
So that's a big move because two people have to be in alignment to make the big jump. And as you said, leaving a career and so forth. And this is like a permanent thing, or you're just trying it out, or you said you made the move and that's that?
We made the move, and the way that we live our lives, the way that I live my life is, we will stay here so long as God wants us to stay here, so long as it feels resonant. And if we are meant to move somewhere else, we will, but we have no intentions in leaving.
just tell us a little bit to just like a small relaxation. Is this some kind of Christian community, or you just found your place and you're now connecting with others? Are you planning to, make courses there or seminars? You want to bring people in, or you're just mainly one-on-one online? Just give us a moment of your day-to-day surroundings and how does it feel? Let us a little bit relax.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. The spiritual community in Greece is something like 98% Orthodox Christian with a little bit of Catholic. So I take part in some of the celebrations and the rituals because my philosophy around faith is that we have freedom in faith. So whatever feels resonant to me, I take part in. Whatever doesn't, I don't. I don't identify under any particular religion. So, and then as far as the work I do, I've always run this business online, so I continue to do so. And I've been in Greece for a year, and now that I'm starting to be a part of the community, I can see places where I could start to work with locals and or tourists that come in. But I'm giving that a little time to find itself. But in the meantime, I work online, coaching, readings, group programs, and most importantly, the podcast, because as you know, that's how you reach the largest audience.
Of course. I mean, I don't, but you obviously do. But I have a small and lovely community.
Yeah.
No, I'm just asking because a lot of people that I know, especially from America or Canada, they move to specific Christian communities here in Europe, where there are already like 2-3 people from a certain mindset. And that's why I was interested if you found such a community and that's a starting point, or you really jumped into a cold water and just, took your place and now slowly building a natural community of people around you, which I think is the right way to do. But of course, there is no right or wrong. Cool.
Exactly. Cold. And I mean, to be honest, although I jumped in cold, God has guided us to the most beautiful people. Like sometimes I'm like, how are they so wonderful? Like, how are they so lovely, inviting? I mean, I'm sure you know, because you love Greece, the hospitality is unmatched, the generosity, it's so beautiful. I feel very blessed with the people that we have met and connected to.
Long as you need a plumber.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Everything changes radically.
Yeah. Not so long as we're not trying to do something.
Yeah, you can come to my wedding, but just don't make me unclog your sink.
Hilarious.
We're starting. We have to stay away from Greek jokes. Okay,
it's going to find its way in. We can't help it.
No, I'm good now. All right, this is so interesting because you have an interesting mix. It's, as I said, I have like 100-something guests a year, and you always get a certain feeling right away where people come from, where they're going. And you bring a multi-layered approach in a sense. You have that spirituality, you have your own story, but then you have this awakening that connects you with the divine. And now it is an interesting overlayer and multi-layer approach. Do we see this kind of personal multi-layered also in your work? Do you bring this to the readings? Do you bring these different layers? How do you tackle it? Or are you trying to keep it very in different compartments so you can deal with it, or you're starting to blend it all together?
Mm-hmm. My work, my coaching style, my message, a lot of that comes from me. So I can't really compartmentalize because I'm showing up in integrity and in authenticity. So I would say it's all blended. That being said, I meet clients where they're at. I don't know about where you live, Philip, but in North America, there's people feel really uncomfortable with anything that feels remotely religious. People feel uncomfortable with the word God, things like that. So, I'll work with clients, meet them where they're at. Perhaps they feel more comfortable talking about the universe or the divine or whatever they connect to, however they identify. I will meet them there. But I do find a lot of people find their way to me because, similar to me, they rejected religion, which I did, Philip. I rejected it, in my early 20s. And yet they threw the baby out with the bathwater. So they rejected religion, but then they lost everything. And they they're feeling this need for connection. And that is kind of where New Age modern spirituality was born, because it was people needing that connection, but not wanting to go under the house of religion. And then I would say the unique thing that I have done is I have gone back to certain practices, teachings, leaders that may be considered religious or under the house of Christianity, and I have reclaimed them as my own. I've made a new relationship to those things that feels very authentic to me and owned by no one. So things like prayer, things like saying the rosary, things like connecting to Mary Magdalene, Jesus, Mother Mary, things like going to church, stuff like this, where people feel really uncomfortable to do that because they're afraid of being sort of like controlled by religion. But I guess I'm showcasing that you can make it your own.
And this, for me, it all sounds very familiar, but I would like to hang in there with one or two questions. First of all, why would you say that, because you hear the word God, everything is God, it just almost sounds to me like a God explosion, and politicians using it, and they're using it, almost the commercial industry is using it. It's just everywhere. So I was a bit surprised when you said that people have a problem with the word God. Can you just say one or two sentences? Why? Who has a problem? Why you think, or what is the problem? Is it just too much bombardment of God, God, God everywhere, so that people, or where would you see the break here?
No, I would say, and I'm speaking for North America, because I think it's probably very different here. I'm learning, which is very different here. In North America, it's not that people are bombarded with it. It's like people have rejected. The majority of people are pulling away from religion, and they consider the word God to be owned by, Christianity or religion. So when they hear the word God, they think like, oh, that means religious, therefore I'm not going to use it, listen to it, or whatever that happens to be.
Do you think it comes with a very strong conservative Christian base in the US that's been pushing very hard its agenda, that the big majority of people try to distance themselves, not immediately being identified to be anti-flat earther or anti-abortion or whatever, just in a radical sense? I mean, whatever their personal belief is. But do you think that is one of the reasons why people just try to keep a bit of distance?
Maybe. I mean, so I'm not American. It's a little different in Canada. We don't have the right and left isn't so connected to religion. And I think that politics probably play a role in that. But in what I've seen in people, it's deeper, it's more personal. It's, maybe their parents or their grandparents grew up religious and tried to pass that down to them or force it upon them. And then seeing the things that have happened in history under the hand of religion has made people really turned off about it.
Of course, you have a very strong issue the last couple of years in Canada with the natives and so forth and so on.
Right.
And so you think it's really, there's just a personal freedom has become very important, being under self-control or self-governing and things like that. So that's why the break to organized religion. It's so funny you're saying that, because I can see at the other end that there is also a huge revival of people wanting the community, as you said, baby with the water, because people maybe throw it out, but now they don't have any community. And especially when they're young parents, they want to give a moral guidance to their kids. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, let's go to the nativity play. But know what I'm doing there. But I also have to tell my kid what's right or wrong. And then, it all gets really complicated in the head, because unfortunately the Catholics or the Christians have really good stories to make it simply clear what is right and what is wrong.
Right, yeah.
So I can see that. And one of the reasons I'm podcasting is I'm inviting a lot of Christian groups. Recently, I had a couple of super great interviews with Quakers.
Oh, I heard Quakers. One of them. I love that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's really inspiring. I mean, or mind-blowing stuff that I'm still cannot understand is the Baha'i faith. It's like completely out of control how they are, how peaceful they are, how individual they are, and the whole way of organizing Baha'i community. But of course, it comes from the Middle East, and it's not necessarily what we can integrate compared to Quakers we can make part of our daily lives. But never mind. I'm completely with you that people throw it out. now there is an emptiness, and now people are searching. And so I wanted to ask you this question why I'm speaking such a long time. Do you think that we're going to see a new community structure re-happening, a new Christianity that is more maybe liberal or more like this? Or you're going to think, no, this individual path, picking from different corners and creating your own, where do you see the future heading?
Great question. I can imagine it's similar to what you're talking about. It's something that's led by an exploration in spirituality through self, like sort of an individual exploration. And there's a point at which in that individual exploration that you seek for connection. You seek to broaden that. And I don't imagine it's going to be through church. I think some Christian churches, I know like the church that I was going to in Canada, have opened up and they are more liberal, as you say. But I almost imagine if it's going to be, groups that are formed by the sort of modern spirituality, I see a lot of these groups and finding ministry through that. I see it being very female-led. I see the feminine really leading in this way, leading and connecting others in this way. I imagine, the rise of the feminine is, in my opinion, like it's happening and it's happening more and more. And so I can see the woman having a stronger spiritual voice. And perhaps the female energy will create something that is a little bit less like authoritarian. Authoritarian? Can't find that word. And something that's a little bit more community driven and open and safe, and something that's really sourced from within rather than from that authority. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, sure, for sure. I mean, I'm trying to devote the whole year of podcasting more or less to that underlying question. That is basically my goal of the year, to come in with every different which way to try to work this out. I'm very curious how it will start to form and develop, because everything is on the table right now. I think it's a super open field.
Agreed.
And it can go exactly the way that you just described. And I see a lot of possibilities and a lot of dangers in it. And it could also be that those well-established Christian groups, a little bit liberalized or modernized or internalized or whatever, that they becoming again very attractive. They have a huge track record. They've been doing it for 200 years.
Yes.
And you know what you get, and there are no wobbly corners. So I think it's very interesting. And I would like to, if I have another minute of me asking questions before we more talk about it. Oh, cool. There's a beep beep in the background. It's not a fire. It's not a fire alarm. You're good to go. Hey, it's something that I'm super interested in these days. And it's like the concept of forgiveness, which is very strong in the Christian faith. And also for being able to ask for forgiveness, those two core elements. Because what you just described to me, I love what you said. But then when I have the conversation with all of my guests and ask them, the things that you have done, how does it materialize in the real world? Are you a better wife? Are you a better mother? Are you a better neighbor? Where does it show? Are you doing charity work? Where does it show your spiritual growth, your inner growth? How does it materialize in the world? And some people get quite grumpy with me and say, I don't care at all for that. It's me, I want to, I want to grow. I want to have the experience. I want to have all of this. So I'm better. And I'm saying, what for?
Well, I would say the more that you work on yourself, the more changing the world starts with changing yourself. The things that you believe about the world, you need to create what you want to see in the world here first. You create it here first. That's how you change the world. So if you want to see a kinder world, you work on whatever's stopping you from kindness to yourself, and then that will then radiate out to kindness to others. If you want to see a world that is more loving, that is more fair, you create that here first, and then it radiates out to others. So for me personally, gosh, the deeper I've gone through my spiritual journey, the more beautiful my relationships have become, with my partner, with my friendships, with my family members. We always have family members that are a little tougher, and it has created so much more compassion, acceptance, accepting people as they are. And then for me, I think we all have different gifts and different places that those gifts can touch the world. And for me, it's created a platform for a voice, leadership, and like actually supporting others through one-on-one work, but also supporting others through way showing, through doing it myself and talking about it. So to me, that's how I change the world that's in my circle, and how you change the world in your circle is probably a little different, but we all do it in alignment with our innate gifts.
It's an endless conversation, and we can't solve it here. That's for sure. And I can sense that you've done the work, that you've gone through the process. I'm just very worried. That's why I'm doing this podcasting. I'm doing this years that I see a lot of people too self-focused, too much care about that inner part, and I never come to the next step. And all the things that you've said, I agree. You must do the work inside, but I see a lot of people in my surrounding that it never goes to the next step. Then they actually become better in the world around it. And that is starting to worry me with this new trend, new age. As you said, it just stops and doesn't come to the next step. But that's, my personal worry.
That's very interesting. I haven't really thought of it, and perhaps it's because I haven't seen it. But the first thing that comes to mind when I hear it is, if you are getting stuck, me, and almost like kind of beginning to circle into like a bit of narcissism, then I would argue perhaps you aren't really doing the work, because there's a part that you're not meeting, a part that you're not healing. You're staying in a wound of some sort for it to not leave you and touch others.
Well, the reason I asked all of this the last couple of minutes, because I want to hear more about your work that you're doing, your one-on-ones, and real examples of some of the people you worked with. Because I was very curious how you looking for signs when you work with people, if you're listening in the background, as it start to materialize in his world around, how his relationships are going. So I was very curious if you do this kind of a checking. We're working with him, we're helping him to grow. In the back of your mind, are you listening? Does it start to show? So tell us a little bit about your work, your one-on-ones. What is your regular client? What they're looking for, what they're needing. So bring us a little bit into that world.
Sure, yeah. So my typical, let's say, mentorship client, because those are the clients I'll work with for extended periods of time. My typical mentorship client is someone who knows they're meant for more and can't seem to get there on their own. So they have this call in their heart, they have this pull, but they may not know to what. They feel blocked on how to get there. And so they're sort of stuck in a reality that they don't feel good in. And that could look like what they do for a living. That could look like the relationships around them. That could look like their money situation, their family situation, usually all of the above. And so what we typically do is we start with visioning. We start with getting clear about what the heart wants, because the heart, so long as you're connecting truly to the heart and not to ego desires, although sometimes ego desires can be like a first step into the desires of your soul, the heart is really your intuition speaking. And your intuition is the voice inside you that is closest to God. So really, when your heart calls, God is guiding you in a direction. So we usually start with visioning. Where do they want to go? And then we look at, okay, you're here. This is where you want to go. What is standing in the way? And what's always standing in the way is a limiting belief, is a belief that says, I can't do that. I'm not this enough. I'm not, people who have money are bad people. I will never get there because I'm incompetent. All these sorts of beliefs. And we just start to work through them. And there are a lot of them, Philipp. And to be honest, working through limiting beliefs was a huge part of my personal journey and work. And I had a ton of them. I had a lot of blocks. And so we work through those blocks. And then on the other side of working through the blocks, we need to start to integrate and we need to show up as the person that we are trying to be. So let's say, you envision a life that feels slower, more at ease, more present, but instead your life is crazy, busy, stressful, you're irritated, all these sorts of things. We see that vision, we're going to work through the blocks, and in the meantime, you need to show up today as the person who's living that life that you are trying to live. And that's the hard part, is being him or her now, in the reality I'm in now. And as you be who you are trying to be, the world will shift around you. It absolutely will. You may have to take some moves, quit a job, whatever it is, but a lot of the time, in my experience, the external world shifts around you. So I hope that answers your question. That's the sort of work that I do. And I mean, you can't put a timeline on these things. There's a component of manifestation or co-creating with the universe that is co-creating. And so you don't always get to say, oh, this is going to happen but within 12 weeks' time. But it certainly gives you the tools to kind of keep repeating that and watching your life change.
And the people they have different age or background, male, female, or professional link, just a little bit to understand who's a regular client. I always like to ask that.
That's a great question. Yeah, my clients are majority female, although I've had a couple of men. They're usually in their 30s,
Really?
maybe early 40s. Yeah.
Wow.
And they are generally hustlers, like women who work really hard, super productive, doing everything for the family, everything for the job. But like I said, there's a call in their heart that says, this isn't it. This ain't it. But they can't seem to get there.
Very interesting. It sounds so contradictory, right? You're so successful, you're doing so a lot, you're moving so much. And then in the end, you're stuck with all the movement where you don't feel an alignment. It sounds very complex and multi-layered all over again. Here we are back to multi-layered.
And I hear a lot of the time, on paper, it all looks good. That's what I hear a lot from clients. On paper, I'm checking off all the boxes. And this is the problem, this on paper, because it's as though, and again, I'm speaking for North America, and I would love to hear your input on if this is similar where you live, but there is like this blueprint that we're all meant to live, and we all sort of unconsciously just got on the road that set us on that path. And then you get to a certain place and you're like, this isn't at all what my soul calls for. My soul calls for a blueprint that is unlike any of this, and therefore it's too scary for me to do because nobody's done it before, or it's really hard for me to find someone who has. Or I look at someone who's done it before and I think, I'm nothing like her, I can't do that. And so this sort of pioneering, stepping away from the blueprint is really scary and hard. And I think something that I showcase and why people want to work with me is because I step away from the blueprint time and time again.
I can see that. I mean, you made the big move. You were not scared. So of course you were a role model because people will listen to you and look at the life that you have chosen to live and say, wow, if she can do it, I want to work with her. She want to guide me. Makes a lot of sense. And to answer your question to me, because you're a podcaster, so you can answer that. And I would like to give a funny answer. I'm from a Catholic country. Being happy is not part of the plan.
I see.
Happiness is not included in our religion.
Interesting.
So,
I mean, I believe you. Yes.
But no, I mean, my people are very modern people. We are, I think, the second strongest GDP per person in the world. We have no unemployment. We have universal health care. And we have some of the best universities on the planet, but actually you do not have to pay to go to university. You get paid from the state if you attend. So
Wow.
It's different.
Wow, a little bit different. Wow.
We have perfect air. In our capital city, we have mountain spring water coming out of the faucet. which is higher quality than puree bottled water.
Of
That
course.
just comes for our showering.
Oh
So
my God.
countries like mine should not exist on this planet.
Oh, and you want to move?
I don't live there for almost 30 years. I
Oh,
can't stand it. Way too happy. Everybody's happy. No problems. And that's why I don't live there. I'm living right now, I lived in many places. Right now, I'm living in a Southeastern European Balkan country, very close to where you are, where nothing is working, everything is horrible, and I really like it.
It aligns with you, does it?
It's dangerous going over the street and, not like my country where we literally have no crime. I mean, I don't know why we have police force in the first place.
Oh my gosh, incredible. Yeah.
It is so funny when we have a lot of tourists. We are, after Paris, the second most touristic city in Europe. And we have so many people from America coming, of course, to visit us. And then they have the backpack in front of them and then they're putting hands. And they're walking through my street, and I always want to go and shake them and say,
"What are you doing? Not necessary.
Put your wallet here on the seat, and just walk around the corner. And when you're back, the wallet is still here.
Yeah,
we don't need your money.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need your money. That's incredible.
So it's funny, but for me, it's not working. It's way too perfect. It's just I can't stand.
Interesting. So you are attracted to a little struggle, are you?
I don't know if that's something one should say out loud, but I like a bit of chaos. I like, my country is also unbelievably strict. Everything is done by the book, and there's no way to maneuver around. You park your car where you park your car, and no left, no right. And if you dare to break any law, price to pay. Here where I'm living now, you can put your car in the middle of the sidewalk, and if a policeman comes, you tell him, leave me alone. And you have a 50-50 chance he will.
Yeah. Sounds like here. Sounds a bit like here. Yeah.
Oh, you are civilized compared to where I am.
Oh, yeah.
You're still in civilization.
Well, it's a big difference from Canada, that's for sure. But yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, you're also a civilized country, Canada. So going to Greece for you is already stepping into the wild. Well,
Definitely.
It gets worse.
Definite culture shock for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I worked a lot. I lived a lot of times in Greece, and it is still okay.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, just because something's different doesn't mean that it's right or more wrong or whatever it is. It's just different.
Anyway, so some people like it colorful and some people like it organized, and I clearly like it colorful.
You like it colorful. Well, at least you know you.
Yeah, sure. I'm 53. I figured it out. I left my country with 19 because I couldn't stand it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been a while.
Yeah. But my country is really mean to me because every time I leave and I move somewhere far away and I rent or buy an apartment and start a new life, I always get a bloody phone call from somebody back there making me a ridiculous job offer that's simply out of control, where you make more money in like no time than 6 years living abroad, going back for a year or two.
Yeah,
and
that's your reality going, are you sure this is what you want? And you're like, yes, don't dangle a carrot. I'm sure.
No, I've made my peace with back and forward. And, I'm a businessman for more than 30 years. I founded many, many companies, and I always have a couple of companies back home, and I have always companies where I live. So I've gotten used to the back and forward. And I actually made my peace, by the way. Yeah, I know what you're saying. By the end, I figure out that's who am I to be that sweet sour. And I have a full-blown life back home, and I have a full-blown life wherever I am. And I made peace with this. One don't need to make the final cut, or at least in my case. So my harmony is having chaos.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to know about yourself and give yourself permission to have it.
Yeah. But can you tell me a little bit about your podcast? I just a little bit looked around and I didn't dive too deep. A little bit, please tell me what it's all about, or who are your guests and what's the mission?
Yeah. So my podcast came out when I was doing readings and coaching, but I had a full-time job at the same time, Philip, when I was in Canada. And so I did not have much capacity to support people one-on-one as much as I needed to. So I birthed the podcast as a way of supporting people, like a larger group of people. So the inner work that I do with my clients, I do on the podcast. So I'm going to talk about, I would say I have a gift of taking abstract or spiritual concepts and breaking them down into a relatable language and sort of like a grounded practice that you can put into your life, into reality. So, for example, this week we talked about surrender, how to surrender, why one might want to surrender, times when surrender is being called. We'll talk about perseverance. Sometimes I'll do like an intuitive reading on a topic. So I recently did a reading on money, on the new paradigm in money versus the old paradigm of money. So it's really just the work that I would do one-on-one with clients, but done on a broader scale. And I use my intuition to kind of pull those topics because I can kind of feel into my community and my listeners and tell what we need to talk about. And then, so that's the solo episodes. And then I also have guest episodes where generally I'm bringing on people who work in the spiritual space or the healing space to give listeners other tools, other practices that they might want to incorporate into their own practice to help them with their inner work.
That sounds really, really nice. And especially the mix between private sessions and guided sessions, and then having people bringing in this very interesting mix. And I guess your viewers are from Canada or they're all over the place?
They're mostly Canada, US, but since I've been here in Greece, I can see the European readership or listenership kind of growing. So I hope to grow over here in Europe because, I live here now. And as much as I like working in the evenings and podcasting in the evenings when North America's awake, it's not really my time to shine.
How cool is that? Because I have 80% US viewers and the rest is Canadian.
Oh,
I literally have not a single person from Europe watching my podcast.
Isn't that interesting? Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. And I podcast from 6 a.m. to midnight.
Oh, yeah.
So, and usually, as you said, the 6 o'clock is always booked and the midnight is always booked because then when the people from the US can come to my show, so I was so happy that somebody's booking my lunchtime.
I know.
And I was checking it free time on my calendar. Is it really 12 o'clock? Is seriously somebody coming at 12 o'clock? That's usually UK.
Yeah.
I got a lot of guests from the UK because I work with I have a lot of academics on my show. I don't know if you noticed. A lot of people who teach in universities and they're usually from UK. But so I was very confused that somebody.
Same. I mean, I was like, does he mean one? But then I heard your accent and I thought, okay, he's European.
All right. This is a wonderful conversation. We're coming slowly to the end. Did I forget something meaningful or would you like to bring us to that last episode? I very much would like to hear a couple of words. Your last podcast episode, you talked about surrender. You feel like opening up to my audience also some of the things that you've said on that subject. I appreciate it because it's a very crucial element of spirituality to learn to surrender. This is the key thing. And I guess when you talk about your own enlightenment moment, the moment that you found the divine and found the voice of God, most probably surrender was a key element to that.
Indeed. And
so maybe if you a little bit bring my audience some of your wisdom, I'd appreciate that.
Yes, certainly. So what I was saying, of all the spiritual practices, spiritual buzzwords, the one that has had the largest impact on my life is surrender. And surrender is difficult. Everybody kind of feels and knows that they need to surrender, but they don't know how. And the reason surrender is difficult is because there's a tie to survival. There's a feeling like if I let go and I hand over my path, the reins to God, I will die. There's this real feeling, and it's on a nervous system level. Maybe it's not a conscious level, I will die, but that's the feeling. Like if I let go, I must control this. I must do this or I will die. And I would say the thing that will help the most with surrender, how easy it is for you to surrender is a direct reflection of your relationship with God. And I'm not here to promote that people have a relationship with God, and you could say the universe, you could say the divine, whatever you want to call it. But if you just understand the logic of it, if I don't have a relationship with the divine, why would I hand over the wheel? Why would I hand over the keys? Why would I hand that over? I don't have a relationship with the divine. Therefore, I'm not going to trust the divine with my life. Of course, I'm not going to do that. So I won't hand it over. So if you struggle with surrender, that is the place to begin, is with building that relationship, nurturing and fostering that relationship with God, the divine, whatever word you want to use. And why surrender? I have many reasons, but the biggest reason I will say is this. If you imagine that God is an artist, okay? An artist who can paint the masterpiece that is your life, that is the most aligned, soul-driven life. God is the artist, and God has every paint color, every type of paintbrush, every canvas ever that ever existed accessible to God. But you, if you were to paint the masterpiece of your life, you have one color, three colors, one paintbrush. You have this very narrow view, narrow perspective of what it could be. God has every perspective of what it could be. So if you try to control it into that narrow thing, you might get there. Chances are you won't, but you might get there. But you'll get there and you'll be like, oh, this isn't quite it. Whereas if you surrender it over to God, you will get somewhere probably that you never even imagined, like living on a Greek island. Never would imagine, but that is where your soul was calling to go. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it makes, I don't know if you know, but I teach meditation for more than 30 years.
Okay.
And I had many groups all over the planet, so to say. And surrender is always the big key because, as you said it so beautifully, it's an unnatural thing. It's a very odd thing to consciously let go and submit. It just feels, as you said, our survival instinct, our inner animal core conflicts with our spiritual or godlike element, because as you surely know, we are half animal, half divine, and it is a very odd thing to navigate. That's one of the reasons I also podcast, or my recent work is so much spinning around it, because I more and more ask myself, what is the true answer to that? Because being a full-blown animal is definitely something that has not worked out well for humanity. And I more and more worry about the people who are spinning and asking myself if that is actually something that does not lead to narcissism or things like that. So balance has become my big part of my life's work, to say, why don't we try to be as truly what we are, a perfect mix in the center? Why don't we try to put our energy in living this center to our fullest possibility? This is part of what I'm right now working on a lot, and I'm planning to write another book this year on that subject about balance and why it actually might be the true path to happiness.
I love that, Philip. And yeah, I've thought about it a lot too. You know, the further I've gone in the beginning when I started my spiritual path, I was like, I was meditating and I was up here all the time. That wasn't exactly grounded in reality. And I think it's Mary Magdalene's gospel that teaches that, as you say, we are 100% the divine and 100% human. Like, we are both. And life kind of feels like a constant play of like wavering between, getting really deep into human and then kind of having your cues that call you back to God. And then life calls you back to human. And life is just this constant sort of wave of going between and both of the two.
Especially because you said the word surrender, because also the word acceptance stands beside of it. So you can spin this word in both ways if you want. Because my form of balance, because people ask me, well, if you are in a balance, will you then ever reach the divine? And you said it quite beautifully. If you are in this balance, you can still accept what is around you, and you can get that guidance, but you're not just spinning or forcing it. And that's the huge difference, because there's so many spiritual techniques where you force the link either to drugs or, as you said, to crazy spinning meditations, and other ways how you can force the link. But then there is the path that I guess you and me have preferred at the moment, is just letting God make the decision, or the divine or the energy just make the decision for itself. Do I want to connect with this guy? He's there. He's doing his thing. Is he worthy of my voice or not? So maybe it's a different approach.
Yeah. And I think, as soon as you start talking about acceptance, like almost like accepting that we are human, it brought me to your story about where you live and how you like accepted, like, this is the kind of like life I like. And I don't have to like feel bad for not wanting to be back in the country I was born in. No, I just like, I accept that this is the truth of it. And it kind of feels the same, it's like, this is the truth. I am human and I am divine. And I'm going to kind of waver between the two. And that's what we signed up to do. Like, we are here on earth. Our souls chose to be here. So we can't want to, I hear this narrative a lot in the spiritual space of like, I don't want to be on this planet. I hope this is my last lifetime, all this sort of thing. And I'm like, yeah, but you do want to be on this planet. You chose to be on this planet. Your soul chose that life, that contract. And so let's honor that. Let's honor the humanness of it. That's what we're here for.
Sure. And especially I'm very worried if people say something like that, because if you don't live to this fullest of the experience and enjoy this to the fullest, you have a very high chance you're going to make another round anyway.
100%. Yeah. If I were a betting woman, I would say, yeah, 100%.
So, and it is also something that brought me to that balance concept, is because I love people. I love humans in all its failure and all its glory, and the angel sides and the devil and the up and the down and the whole messiness of the human experience. And I'm a big fan of self-improvement. It's always more like self-realization. It's a different thing to accept, as you so beautifully said, to accept who we are, live it to the fullest, enjoy it the much as we can, and take the way out of it. So the simple answers are the ones that are more attractive to me. And obviously that you have moved to Greece, simple answers are the ones that are laying on your path ahead of you.
Yeah, I wouldn't have called it simple, but but here we are. It's beautiful. And Philipp, if I was to just add one more thing about surrender, is the other thing with surrender is it's not always the time to surrender, right? Like, we're not surrendering constantly. Sometimes we are taking action. Sometimes we are pushing in a direction. But it's gaining the experience to know when is a time to surrender and when is a time to move. When's a time to wait? When is a time to move? And I would say, for anyone listening, wondering like, oh, am I meant to surrender? A good sign that it's time to surrender is if you are pushing, moving forward in a direction and it is not giving, like you're just meeting resistance, it's just not working. That's generally a sign that you're meant to let go and let it come. So hopefully that helps, because I think the word surrender, it's great, but we can't constantly in the state of surrender. We are humans. We like to move. We have energy sometimes that wants to go somewhere.
I think this was so kind of you to bring me to our last episode, and we put the link, of course, down there. So people who want to jump to your podcast right now and here to have an idea of what is talked about. And with simple, I didn't mean simple in terms of simple, just a Greek island is not a capital city of Paris or New York. It is, and the people, as I said, they're kind and they're opening up. Is still a certain simplicity in the life and in the way the relationships work. And it's more natural. It's more the old way how things are gone. And I hope you will connect, if you have the time, with Orthodox priests. They are unbelievably amazing conversationalists. So everybody who's ever traveling to Greece and finds time, they are usually, I don't know if you know, but most Orthodox priests has finished 2 serious academies. They're highly educated people. Yeah. Even if they work in a small village church, they usually speak 2-3 languages and finish mathematic universities and stuff like that. It's super regular. And they're I don't know if you've ever already been to some weddings or stuff like that.
I have.
It's so fun to see the priests. They just suddenly show up, sit down, just have a look if everybody's fine, drink maybe a little glass of something, and then they move on. They're so naturally still integrated into life and family. They never give a speech or anything. They're just simply there. And as something I very deeply love Greek Orthodox priests because they're educated, they're warm, and they're very much hands-on in their community, but without ever pushing any agenda, which is the Orthodox way. They're just there.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope you will have the privilege of a couple of very good, strong conversations. They're great people to talk to. And with this, I thank you so very much for bringing us all this knowledge. Everybody, thank you so much for staying with us, two podcasters talking to each other. I think a lot here was good stuff to think about and to move forward. And of course, your links to your one-on-one and everything is at the description. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you to your audience. Much love.